Hey guys, this is Nerd Talk Podcast. I am your host, Eli. With me is my co-host, Ben.
Hey guys, how's it going?
This is another movie review. We watch it so you don't have to. This week, we will be reviewing the 1995 film, Memories. This film is very unconventional. It has three separate stories that do not coincide with each other. So we will be talking about them each individually so we don't get things jumbled and confused. Spoiler warnings ahead. Ben, my dude, the spoilers, are they real?
They're definitely real. They're going to be in this episode. Episode 1's director is Koji Morimoto. The main cast is Mark Swint, Robbie Damon, and Laura Post. The episode is called Magnetic Rose. The synopsis for episode 1: in the far reaches of space, after tracing a distress signal to a large abandoned space station, a pair of engineers, Heinz and Miguel, find a derelict mansion and decide to explore on foot. Their investigation reveals a dark secret surrounding the fate of Ava Pradell, a renowned opera singer with a tragic history. Hallucinations soon begin to plague them, and they must fight to retain their sanity in order to escape the station alive.
Ben, this experience, I'm calling it an experience because this is not a conventional film in any ways. Magnetic Rose was a trip I wasn't expecting. I enjoyed this one, but this is probably where it lies in the best. I don't know how to describe this whole thing, but I couldn't get my eyes off this episode, but I really did find some enjoyment in it. I don't know. How did you feel about this episode?
This was probably the best of the three, I would have to say. But still, I am super passionate about my animes, and this one just did not hit me. Honestly, if I wasn't watching this for the podcast, this would have been turned off in the first 10 minutes of this, 5 minutes of this movie. I couldn't connect with it at all.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe this whole series of films, but this one, yes, like you said, it was the best. My overall was a 6.75.
For this one episode?
Yeah, for this one episode.
Wow. Mine was a 3.75.
Yeah, I know. I think I was a little generous here and there, but overall, I thought I did okay.
All right. Well, let's find out how you got yourself to that 6.75, shall we?
Plot.
0.75.
I gave it a 1.
Couldn't.
Why couldn't you? Why couldn't you?
There are many things.
Like what?
I liked its plot line. It had a good plot line. They go to find this distress signal, and it turns out that the distress signal was just a computer of a lady's consciousness who didn't want to be alone, and so she trapped people there who she made her husband. It's a good plot line, but there were some things in it that I thought their suits were weird, their space suits, because they trade out the use of their arms for these tiny little metallic things. I was just like, okay, well, that's weird. But that didn't have anything to do with the plot. I just wanted to bring that up. My main thing was Heinz knew that that his daughter was not actually on that ship. Heinz knew that all of this was being done by the computer that he literally just looked at, the brain that he literally just looked at. He shot the fucking robot and the hologram went away. Then he looked up and he saw the brain. Then it built his house and his daughter came out. He knew none of that was real, and yet he was screaming and crying when his daughter Emily fell, in quotations, off the roof. It was all hologram. He knew it was hologram. He knew nothing was real. If he'd gotten out of there, he could have made it back to his real daughter. He did not do that. I don't understand why. It kind of confused you until you saw that she was robotic. I did like how much of a bitch she was. Like, she just killed the entire crew, sucked them into that ship, and just like, fuck you all. The only one who survived was Heinz, but he's not going to live for very long because he's floating alone in space. But I thought the plotline was good. It's just that part that I just didn't understand. I was like, why the hell is Heinz? He knows this is fake. Why is he boo-hooing about a dead daughter that's not actually there? And I hated Miguel. I'm just going to say it. Hated Miguel. He was annoying, but I don't know. I gave it a 0.75 because it was a great plot line. I just didn't like that part of it.
I agree with you. It was a great plot line. I really did like the atmosphere of the plot. I got that Dead Space vibe feeling from the plot throughout the story. I got that feeling. But I actually felt that the stress from like they showed when he was sitting there drinking his coffee and all that and that hallucination. The daughter said, "I wish daddy was at home," and all that. And then he woke up and he was like, "Oh shit, I'm getting mind fucked here." Grabs his gun and runs. And then I feel like he was just under so much stress. He was losing his sense of reality in that scene, part of himself a little bit. I truly believe that because it was confusing when he initially after he shot the robot, but then you could see he was just broken because of the fact that, like it was said, he hasn't been home a lot. They wish he was home. He knows that in the back of his mind. And when he saw that, it's just like, oh my God, what the hell? And he's just broken. He just wants to get home. You can see this the tiredness, the stress, the exhaustion, and he's just losing himself.
Okay, he wants to get home. He's not gonna get home because the whole place is blowing up, even though everything in his arms fades away and his.
He actually picked up that girl. That the his daughter that was fake. He actually picked it up.
I know.
So he
It was
to
a
him,
robot.
yeah, but to him, he felt like it was real. So I gave it the one. It was a great plot line. It was a great plot line. It cruddy ending, like cruddy ending, like just have him just wake up and go, oh, I'm I'm dead. I understand where you're coming from. The confusion, yes, the confusion is there, but that's what I see out of it.
Okie doke.
Voice acting,
I gave that a 0.5.
I gave that a point 0.5. I didn't feel like anyone was strong in that. Felt super generic, super bland, and nothing stood out. The wailing of crying was so bad when he
It
was,
was definitely forced.
yeah, it was so forced, but it was uncomfortable to say the least.
The only reason I gave it a 0.5 was because I loved the sound of the opera voice. Her voice was gorgeous. Listening to them try to do the different accents for the different people that were on the shuttle, it was like, wow, that is fake as fuck. You're wow. Okay. It was forced.
No, you could feel the forced voice acting because I bet the sub sounds so much better, but in the dubbed, the one that we watched was just not good at all.
Mhm.
Character development,
0.
I gave it a 0 as well.
Nothing to develop on in this one. Nothing.
With these short movie type things, these episodes, there's no development. I felt like throughout this episode, this first one, there's nothing there to grasp. There's nothing there to see that this character grew. There's no growing. In the end, it's just like, bleh. There's nothing. So I have to give it a 0.
Absolutely nothing. You could hope for Heinz to have some type of development, but he breaks down, starts crying over a fucking hallucination, and then everything blows up. Even Ava doesn't develop. She's an AI, and she's just like, "Ha, fuck you all. You're all gonna die."
Yeah. Sound and music,
0.25.
0.25. I gave it a 1.
Nah,
No, I thought the opera singing worked so well with the scenery. I felt like it was,
that's the only thing that got the 0.25. There was nothing else.
but I loved it. I loved how it really worked throughout the whole story. You just throughout, even at the ending when everyone's dying in destruction, you just hear her bellowing voice in the background as she's seeing the mayhem happening. You can just feel the tension from that. I just loved it so much
But that's the only thing that was offered.
because she was a profound singer.
I know, but they could have given more than just her opera singing. They gave a little bit at the beginning before they even got to the ship, but all that music was just there to fill a gap. The end was the best part. Her belting through this destruction was amazing, but there was nothing else offered throughout the entire episode.
I love the creepiness of the piano. The creepiness of the piano when that was the sound they heard for the SOS. I really did like that. And then once he touched the key, it just boom. This whole field of flowers, like a gazebo. It was just I really enjoyed it. I really did enjoy the sound mixing in this one.
I did not.
Yeah. Animation.
0.25.
I gave it a 0.75.
It was so choppy throughout every episode. It was just choppy. Really hard to stay focused on. It was a lot of touch and go. There was just so much freeze frames. It was fast freeze frames, but it looked like I was going through a flip book. It was just too much.
Yeah, I really like the transitions they did with some of the animations, like when he touched the piano, the embellishing. But no, it wasn't like phenomenal. It was really rough for what anime was out there at the time. You had some really decent animes coming out in the mid 90s, and I felt like it could have been done better, but I really did enjoy some of the transitions throughout, and there was some smoothness, but not really. It reminded me of Ghost in the Shell, like the 95 Ghost in the Shell. It wasn't spectacular,
Mhm.
but I enjoyed it to a certain degree.
Actually, I think I will bring mine up to a 0.5 just because I actually really liked the transition from the piano, like you were mentioning. He hits the key and it just field of flowers. Absolutely beautiful. The way they transitioned into that scene was great. There were actually a couple more, like when Miguel falls into the pit and falls into the water. It actually looked pretty good for 90s animation, water splashing or and dripping, and when they get up, the water is on their suits, it's dripping off their suits. So I'm going to change it to a point 0.5 because of that. For the most part, I would just say that it was just too choppy for me. It wasn't that well done.
I think one thing that I thought was weird was close-ups of their faces. Remember the wall of photos and
Yep.
where it's like you saw the girl and her husband, and then it was Miguel and her, and I was like, "Oh, that's so creepy. That's so bad." But like the little small things were just a little off, and it was like, ugh. Directing.
Point 0.5.
I gave that a point 0.5. I thought it was just middle of the road. He had a great story. He had a great story in his hand and kind of went everywhere. Kind of fell flat. He had a good direction, but some of the points were not executed well.
I feel like he knew exactly what he wanted, but he didn't know how to execute it. And so the way it flowed, it was a rushed flow because he only had 37 minutes to work with. So it didn't get executed in a way that could have made the film so much better. I just feel like he didn't have enough time to do what he could have done, and it made the project fall and fail.
I totally agree there. Attraction.
Point 0.5.
I gave it a 0.75.
There wasn't anything for me to really attract to. The field of flowers was beautiful. The animation was really hard to get through. It was very choppy. I couldn't find anything to grab onto, something to suck me in. It just didn't work, especially with the voice acting. It was just so bad. Their accents, man. It's their accents. It sounded so fake. It was so bad.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. No, but I gave it a 0.75 because I really did like the atmosphere of this story. I really did get a dead space feeling to it. It had that a little bit of creepy ambiance. It was really captured me because I really liked the dark tones in this one. Yes, there was some issues with the voice acting. Like they should have just kept subbed, never did dubbed, to be honest, because that was the roughest thing. I wish there was some development in character, but with a 37-minute story, you could see why there was none. And the direction of the director, I could feel it. You could feel it that he was not executing it well. But I really did enjoy the ambiance and the tones that was projected in this short film. Dialogue.
I gave that a point 0.5.
I gave it a 0.25.
I did originally, and then I just barely changed it because there are a couple lines that I liked.
Okay, what were some of those lines?
One of them that made me laugh really good was when he first goes into the hologram room because he sees the girl. He goes in there and then she disappears, and he's like, "There was a girl there, I swear." I mean, I guess you could say she ghosted me. I didn't execute it very well, but the way that Miguel executed it, it was actually pretty funny at the moment.
Yeah,
And then another one that I really liked was "Only I may decide my own value," said by Madam Ava. I thought that that was actually really powerful because she was going through all this criticism and all this hurt because she lost her voice. And so she could only do acting over her voiceovers that she had recorded previously. And a lot of fans didn't like that. And I thought that that line pretty much connects with a lot of people. Only I may decide my own value, because it's true. You ultimately get to decide who you are and how valuable you are. If you feel like you are no value, then your life is going to suck. That's just how it goes. So I thought that was pretty strong. And then there were a few dingers in there that were pretty good, other than the accent being terrible. Some of the lines were just delivered really well. And so I ended up bringing it up from a 0.25 to a point 0.5.
You know, I'm gonna bring mine up to a point five because I do agree with you there. There were some nice lines like just delivered throughout this production, and I just felt like it was well delivered. Some of the lines were funny. I really did like that ghosted one because you didn't think that was gonna be a thing because that's more common in this generation, not in the '90s.
Right. It was pretty good. It was like, huh, that was actually really funny. I actually ended up laughing really hard. My roommate came out, was like, what the hell? I'm like, I couldn't help it. It was funny.
Scenery.
I gave that a point 0.5.
I give it a 0.75.
I liked that it was in space. I loved the space atmosphere. I loved how when they step inside this ship, it's just this beautiful mansion looking place, almost like a castle. It's just gorgeous. I really enjoyed the flower scenes when Miguel hits that key and everything just pops. Beautiful. And again, I loved when Miguel falls into the pit and the water looks amazing. It's done really well. There are some really damn good scenes in this, but not enough to really captivate me into the film. It's just enough to keep me interested, but not enough to keep my entire focus on this film.
I really did like the space theme, as you said. It was really good to me. Like I say again, I really got a Dead Space 1 vibe. In Dead Space 1, they talk about the Ishimura going into the ship. This one is the same thing. There was an SOS signal, and I really did like the scenery that they gave, all the rust outside, all the broken ships. It was a really clever way of doing a ship graveyard, basically. And when you got into the house, man, that was crazy to see. Like when you touch something, it just melted because of how old it was. I like the detail they gave with like the stuff breaking down and like decaying. And I really did like the more you got downstairs, the more decrepit and unfinished it was. You saw the top because it's like, oh, this is where everyone's gonna be. No one's gonna go into the basement and see the mayhem, the nightmares it was gonna have. So I gave it a 0.75 because I really liked it. I wish there was a little more detail in some aspects down in the main basement area, but overall, I really did enjoy it. So I gave it a 0.75. Recommended.
For the first episode, I gave it a 0.75. I brought it up from a 0.25.
I gave it a 0.75 as well. I really did like the atmosphere of this one. The plot was good. The voice acting was terrible. For me, the sound and music was good. Animation could have been better. Directing could have been better, but I really do recommend this one because it's of the ambiance and the tones, and it's not that long. It's 37 minutes. It's something to experience, and for me personally, I do really enjoy it.
Talking with you about it and then rethinking about it, I would actually recommend the first episode. I thought that the plot was right there. It just had some nicks in it that could have been improved. And I feel like if it had gotten more time, then Morimoto could have really expanded this episode just to make it beautiful. If this was a standalone film, memories, because this is all about her memories. If he could have just done a standalone film for this part of the film, it would have been amazing. It could have been an absolutely amazing story. But because of that short window, he didn't have enough time to expand on it and it just failed. So I would recommend you watch this one if you're looking for something kind of unorthodox, kind of not really mainstream, not what most people are watching now. Go ahead and check this one out, but I couldn't quite give it a 1 just because it just lacks that little bit to make it a great project.
Yes, I agree.
So my final actually went up an entire point. It's a 4.75 compared to a 3.75.
Mine was at a 6.75 is my final one. I think I stayed the same. But I changed some things around, but overall it stayed the same. Episode 2, Stink Bomb.
Director is Tensai Okamura. Main cast, Stephen Fu. Only one main cast member in this one. The synopsis for Stink Bomb. Hapless lab technician Nobuo consumes some pills at his library to cure a cold. Unknown to him, however, the pills are actually experimental drugs that enhance his flatulence to a lethal degree. As the toxic gas escapes him, kills everyone in his vicinity, he is ordered by his superiors to retreat to the company headquarters in Tokyo. The journey to the city is made all the more dangerous as Nobuo struggles with his deadly odor while the police, military, and foreign adversaries are hot on his trail.
Oh my Lanta, this episode, like in the name, stank. It stank hard. It bombed. Dude, it stank bomb. It was a bomb stank. Like whatever you want to call it. I did not enjoy this one at all. I tried. I really tried, but this whole episode was just, what am I watching here? This is dumb. This is so dumb. What were your thoughts?
I completely agree. The whole time I'm just like, oh my God, just let this fucking end. What is the point to this? There is no point to this. It was just terrible. And I hated Nobuo. He was stupid. He was just a terrible character.
Plot.
0.25.
I gave it a 0.75.
Oh, Lordy.
It made sense what they were trying to do. The plot was simple. This kid was sick, trying to figure out how to cure his cold. His coworkers like, try this new experimental drug. Okay. They didn't even look at the information, stupid idiot. And comes to find out, it's like a chemical pill that makes you sweat poison. It made sense. It was dumb, but it made sense throughout in his journey to try to get all this information and them trying to stop him. It made sense. I didn't say it was great. It was just the plot made sense to me.
The plot may have made sense. It was executed in a terrible, terrible fashion. It was stupid. I got a cold. Oh, look, there's an experimental drug. Oh, sure, why not take the damn thing? No, I'm not going to read anything about it. This is a science research center, and I'm just going to go ahead and take this pill. Sure, why not? Stupid. There was the fucking
The only reason why he took the pill is because he trusted his coworkers. That was the ignorance of that character.
Like I said, Nobuo was an absolute idiot. He was stupid. I hated him. I don't understand this. The entire Japanese military force, they had thousands of helicopters, hundreds of tanks, ships. Not one of them could hit him with a fucking missile. How is that possible? He was on a fucking bike.
I think in the pill he took, there's a repellent of some sort. You saw the electrodes, like that green lightning that was coming out of him all the time. I think that was an electric field that would like deflect it into like random and just give it like electric shock, so it had no control.
Okay, but they still have machine guns. It's not hard to
Yeah.
hit a target with a fucking turret.
Yeah, I don't get it. Okay.
Also, tank missiles aren't launched with a fucking guiding missile. It's just a big shell that comes shooting at you. So that wouldn't have even affected the tanks. Anyway, they sent an entire fucking fleet against this guy and not one of them could hit him. It was confusing as to how the bioweapon was even released until, 15 minutes before it was done? They're like, oh, this is what's happening. It's following him. It's his scent. It's okay that they didn't explain that. I just wanted to let you guys know that you do finally find out why it's not affecting him, but he's just stupid. I hated his character. This plot had no point to it. I couldn't give it anything higher than a 0.25 because there was nothing going on with this plot.
Yeah. Voice acting.
0.25.
I gave it a 0.25.
It's garbage. Absolute garbage. The best characters were the fucking general and even the US general that was in the room. Their voices were the best delivered. They were the best delivered lines. Other than that, it's all shit, especially Nobuo. I hate listening to him. I hate his character, everything about him. I just don't like him. I don't like him.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you there. His character was written so poorly, in my opinion. He works for a pharmaceutical company, and he's this stupid. Why would they be shooting at you? Oh, maybe because that experimental pill I took has something to do with it. Why am I always hungry? They played him as he's this scientist dude who's just an idiot. Straight up, no common sense. And I hated that. Because it's like, you could have fleshed out this character to be actually a decent character, but they try to make him like this innocent little turd who just never understood anything. Also, the general, he was the best voiced next to the Japanese general. Those two were like the best so far. Yeah, it was just terrible. It was just straight terrible. Character development.
A 0.
Yeah, that's a 0, my guy. There was nothing there. I think, honestly, the character digressed.
Yeah, he got dumber as he went through.
Yeah, he went dumber. I understood the beginning scene where he had to get the shot so he didn't get more sick, but it's like, why? Why do we like? I understand to a certain degree why we had to watch it, but after that, there was no point for that. There was no point in any of that in the development. There was no development. He just got sicker at the office, and then all of a sudden he was better. So the development in the story made no sense. And I felt like if I had to give anything, the Japanese general was the only one that maybe had something in his brain that may have developed because he was being compassionate. But that's it. But I still give it a 0 because it was not good enough.
Yeah, there was absolutely nothing given. The one who originally created the thing ended up dead. It was just everything about it was bad. There was no development. There was nothing there. He just got stupid, dumber and dumber. Why are they shooting at me? Well, gee, I don't fucking know. Maybe because you're killing everybody, you dumb fuck. I just hated it. Hated it.
Yeah. Sound of Music.
I did give that a 0.5.
I gave it a 0.5. I really did like when he turned the corner and you saw all those jets and the plane and the helicopters, the music that just started playing. It was like, ooh, what's gonna happen here? And then all the explosions. It was like boo, 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 boo. I think the thing I didn't like was that it was very generic sounds and music. It was just very generic. Nothing popped out. Like that scene, but that's really it.
The music was the only thing that held this together. It's the only thing that pulled you in because it had that fun music at the beginning. It was just like kind of makes you, oh, this is kind of jumpy. I like it. And then, especially the helicopter and jet scene, like you were saying, it's just like intense enough to be like, we got to get this motherfucker and we can't get this motherfucker. The tanks start shooting each other because that gas is starting to get in their face and they're falling asleep or their eyes are watering and they're starting to crash. And the music brings that out. But other than that, it wasn't enough to keep you into this story. Again, if I wasn't watching this for the podcast, I wouldn't have finished it. Not even close. I hated Nobuo. And like the first 3 minutes of this film, I was like, I want to turn this fucker off. Fuck you.
Animation.
I could only give it a 0.25.
I gave it a 0.25. I didn't feel like I hated the camera shot that they did when that cameraman died. Noburo, whatever.
Nobuo.
When he's like, "Mommy," like, or "Help me." He said, "Help me," and I'm like, "This is dumb. This looks awful. Why did his face get so much fatter in that shot? It shouldn't have been that fat." Don't get me wrong, the fire inside that tunnel that they blew up was pretty cool, and those NASA suits were pretty cool. I liked how they did that thing where they hit the button and like the mask like changed to like be like a shield, but that was it.
Can we just say how fucking hilarious it is that artists of this story decided that it was the US government that was going to save everybody with the NASA suits? I thought that was fucking hilarious.
I thought that was great. And then you saw the helicopter, Navy. And then they're like, "Who the hell is that?" Oh no. And I love the running animation that they did. It was just cartoony enough to be like, okay, this is stupid. This is so stupid. But it was funny. He's like, "Everyone out, out, out." Just booking it, getting into the cars and then swerving the car and blowing up. He's like, damn. It was a little rough with some of the scenes, and I just didn't really found excitement in it. It was funny at some points, but not enough to get anything above 0.25.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't give it anything higher than that because, again, the animation was just super choppy and really hard to stay focused on. I hated Nobuo's face. Everything about that dorky little punk, man, everything. I just didn't like him. I could not connect with him at all. And they didn't do justice to his face the way they drew him. I hated it. There was nothing that popped in the cinematography except for when they sent the entire fucking fleet against him. Other than that, nothing looked good. I didn't like it. I really didn't.
Directing.
A 0.
I was very generous, like super generous. 0.5.
How the fuck did you give it a 0.5?
Besides hating on the main character, I really did like the side characters. I liked his direction towards them. I did not like the main character at all. I think I was just being super generous. I liked the scenery decisions that he made overall, but it was just
I'm sorry, but if you can't connect to the main character, there's nothing to a story. There was no plot, there was no character, there was no development, there was no good music. Cinematography was terrible. I'm sorry, but it was just done absolutely terribly. Tensai Okamura, that was probably the worst project I've ever seen you do, ever. His direction went nowhere. I think he just threw together a 37-minute story and said, good enough. It was just bad.
also I didn't feel like his repertoire that he has, it was more serious work. So I think when he tried this comedy one, there was some funny moments, but it wasn't good.
Garbage, bro. Garbage.
Attraction,
0.25.
0.25.
There was nothing here. The best part was the fact that they sent the entire fleet against him. Watching the jets take off, watching him fly, watching the helicopters and the tanks come after him. It was kind of fun to watch, but that's the only attraction that there was. Character sucked. The plot was terrible. The music was okay. It matched the scene, but definitely not good cinematography. I'm sorry. This episode sucked.
Yeah, no, the attraction was that little blip, and I really liked the suits. I liked how unrealistic those suits were. Holy crap, those suits
But they were badass, my guy.
were so cool. I want one so bad. The ending where he ended up in the suit, Naburo. I'm like, how the where what? How? Okay. Dialogue.
Zero.
Zero. There's nothing.
Nothing.
There's absolutely nothing in this one. Maybe one of the general from the United States maybe said a line or two, but it was so bland that I couldn't even pick anything up. There was nothing there to grasp. The straws were thin and nothing was there. I hated that there was nothing rememberable about the lines except his whiny attitude. That was it.
I completely agree. Nobuo was so fucking annoying. Why are they shooting at me? I want my mom. Oh my god. If they're shooting at you, maybe you should stop and find out. Maybe you should like get arrested or something, you dumb fuck. Obviously, there's a reason for it.
Maybe be at Twitter, you know. I would have figured it out. Hey, there's a news report about me and my body perspiring toxic fumes. I'll stand here and wait. Thank you, Twitter.
Can we just mention the fact that there was a 10, 12-year-old boy sitting there crying, and his fucking cry sounded like a newborn cry? Like, what kind of audio is that? Come on, guys.
What kind of dialogue are we doing? And then, like, when you get into that little doctor's office, you just hear all these lines like, "If you don't shut up, I'll teach you to shut up," or something like that. I'm like, what the hell?
The dialogue was terrible. There was nothing that popped. There was nothing that was funny. There was nothing that made me want to write it down. Like, it was just, there was no good dialogue. It was just shit.
Yeah, it was trash.
It was terribly written.
Scenery.
A zero.
I gave it a 0.5.
I couldn't. Nothing came out of it. It was a huge green cloud following him. That was most of the scene, except for the fact that they bloomed with that fucking cloud. But who cares about that? It wasn't very pretty.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much so. I found it to be gave the cities a nice wreckage look. Gave it a nice like Last of Us vibe.
It made no sense. How did this cloud of smoke make everything bloom, but kill off or make people fall asleep? Whatever the fuck it did. I think it killed them. I don't know.
Straight up killed them.
It didn't say specifically if it killed them or not. They were just down with their eyes open. Anyway, I don't know. There just wasn't anything. They were in the office, in the war room, and outside with that giant ass green cloud. I can't give scenery anything.
I enjoyed the scenery. I enjoyed the colors and all. I enjoyed that it was bright and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't great. No, do not mix my words up. I am not saying this is phenomenal or fantastic. I'm saying this is I enjoyed it. My eyes enjoyed it. I enjoyed the scenery. That's what I went with. It was okay. Recommended.
Zero.
0. Yeah, across the board.
It was a crock of shit. Everything about it was just shit. I'm sorry, but there was no plot. There was no good voice acting. There was no character development. Sound of music was okay. Directing was absolute shit. There was no dialogue. I cannot tell you to go watch this in good faith because it is terrible. I hated it. I'm a very avid anime watcher. I love it. And I'm sorry, but Mr. Okamura, you dropped the ball on this one big time. It was just shit.
I think there could have been something there. I gave it a 0 because there was no substance. Your plot made sense. What you wanted made sense. What you did was hand me an anime that made no sense. You literally put this whole story together for a comedy relief in between these two dramas, you can call it, and it fell flat like a pulse of a dead person. It was just bad. I found the little humor things enjoyable, but that was really it. Sound music was okay, but nothing much beyond that. My overall was a 3.
Mine was a 1.5.
Oh wow, my guy. Oh wow. Story 3. Cannon fodder.
Director Katsuhiro Otomo. Main cast Jack Britton, Ellen Ray Hennessy, and Mike Pollock. The synopsis for Cannon Fodder. In a fortress city filled to the brim with cannons, a young boy wishes to surpass his father by becoming a revered artillery officer. Despite no proof of an enemy nation, he cannot resist the urge to partake in the daily bombardment routines organized by the city. Whether at school or just before bedtime, he only dreams of someday firing a cannon for the sake of his homeland.
Story 3. I don't know how to describe it. Mysterious and weird and confusing. That's what I'm saying. And rough. What about you?
I would say garbage. There was no story here. I just didn't understand any of it. I mean, we'll go through everything, but I'm telling you, there's just no story to it. It was just, what the fuck is going on? That was my thought the whole time. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on?
Exactly. Plot.
Plot got a 0.
I gave plot a 0 as well. If I think about it now, I can see, I think the theme of what they were trying to tell you in a plot. I think they were trying to tell you that these people lived a whole life in war and they knew nothing else. And they shot this cannon randomly, I believe, because they thought they were attacking someone and going to win this war. But it just gave you this feeling of the cannon was the only thing that mattered. And that's it. Why was the boy in the story? Because the boy went to school and did something? No, it was bad. It was rough and it made no sense.
There was absolutely no plot to this episode. Nothing at all. Story didn't even have any characters to base this story around. It was a family living in a world of cannons, basically showing us what this city does every day. There was no point to the boy being there. He wakes up, salutes the picture, goes to school, and you see him 2 more times. That's it. Mother is there. She makes them breakfast. And then whatever the fuck her job is, she says her salute to the cannon shot. Father had the biggest part in this where he was loading the cannon. He was showing his job. But what the fuck was the point of it? There was no point to this plot. There wasn't a story in depth. There wasn't any backstory. There wasn't anything that told you why they do this or what the story is trying to tell you. There was nothing to connect to. The plot was absolute garbage. There wasn't one.
The boy wasn't in this. What he did was salute this little stupid painting, flew like a plane, and then asked his mom for a helmet. That was it. And then you saw him in class daydreaming.
Absolute garbage.
It was more about the dad, I felt like.
But it even wasn't. Because you saw the dad for a second get dressed, and then he's not in the story until the end when the bullet comes unhooked from the hook and he falls off and they make him stand there when the shot goes off. But other than that, he's not there. There is no character that this plot is based around because there is no plot.
I agree. Voice acting.
0.25.
I'm going to change mine to a 0.25. I had it at a 0.5.
How did you have it of a 0.5?
My dude, I was sitting there thinking about it deeply, and I went, why do I have this at a 0.5? I think I just wrote it in the moment because I once I watched it, I immediately just wrote what I felt immediately.
The only words that are really spoken are from mom. Other than that, dad doesn't say anything except for ready to launch when they're leaving the house. And then the son is just really annoying and is like, Mom, can I have one of those hats that all the kids have and blah, blah, blah. But that's the only line that he gives, basically. Like there's just no talking. It's bad. The most talking that came out of this was from the supervisor who was telling them how to load the cannon. There was no voice acting in this. It was just people with a microphone in front of them and saying a few things other than mother. That's it.
Honestly, this could have been a silent animation. I think it would have been better.
Probably.
Character development.
Well, obviously that has a 0. There's no characters in it.
No.
There's nothing to base this story around, so there's no development anywhere. You can't develop a character if there's no characters in it.
Exactly. Yeah, like you said, there's no development. It felt flat and it felt rough throughout. There was nothing there to grasp. Sound and music.
0.5.
0.5. I agree. I just felt it was mediocre. It was mid. Nothing exciting. Nothing good. Nothing bad. I thought the cannon was cool. Thought the cannon sounds were really cool. I really liked that type of stuff. But overall, there was nothing there.
I gave it a 0.5 solely because of the end credit music. That's it. I loved the end credit music. But other than that, I couldn't give it to anything else. I mean, the cannon, yeah, it did sound pretty cool, but really that's all I could give it to. I ended up not turning it off after the film finished because I really liked the end credit music.
No, that music actually was pretty baller. I actually really enjoyed that. Animation.
0.25.
0.5. I really enjoyed the art style. It was creative. It was unique. It was all hand drawn, and I really like that. But that's all I can give. It was choppy. It was flat. I did not like the noses on anyone. The shading on that was terrible, but I liked the hand drawn style. It did throughout. It really felt original. It didn't feel generic. So that's why I gave it the 0.5.
Nah, I couldn't. It was way too choppy, even for hand drawn. I've seen way better hand drawn. I swear to God, I was looking through a fucking flip book. It was just bad. There was no smooth transitioning animation. I'm not lying here. I swear to God, I was flipping through a flip book. It was just bad.
Directing.
A 0.
I gave it a 0.25.
I couldn't. There was no plot. There was no character. There was nothing. All it was this city of cannons shooting at nothing. Director didn't push any characters. He didn't give us any background. There was nothing for the director to direct. He just said, draw this and make it into a film. Katsuhiro Otomo, I feel like he did nothing in this project at all. I seriously just think that he said, here's the storyboard, now draw it. Okay, good job, we're done.
I felt that the direction of this was more, I think he tried to do a silent film type thing because there was no talking really. It was like him showing a cannon, the process of how they shot this cannon, and I just didn't understand it at all. Why are we showing off this cannon? Yeah, it's huge. It's massive. There was nothing there to actually show direction in this film. It just felt like it was a mess. It was just a hot mess, and the director just did not execute it well.
So how does that earn it a 0.25 if there was no direction?
I felt that the direction of the art style was the only positive that he had, and that's it. I really did like the art. I really enjoyed the art in this. Attraction.
0.25.
0.25.
There was nothing that grabbed me except for the cannon fire and the music at the end. The music at the end woke me up from the coma that this episode was putting me in.
I loved how the shot took the action of like a lawnmower. I loved it.
Pull cord.
Yeah, I love the pull cord. It was so good. I love that. That gave me a little humor. Like I say again, the art style was something that was unique to me. But that was it. That's all that attracted me. Like that end credit music was so good. I agree with you there 100%. But yeah, there was nothing. Dialogue.
I gave that a 0.25.
I gave it a 0.
I gave it a 0.25 because I liked the opening scene with mom when she's like, "Oh, good morning to you too, mister. I drive my mother nuts because I'm too lazy to get up in the morning for drills. Just because they aren't mandatory doesn't mean you can blow them off, you know." I like that line because it's sarcastic as fuck. and I'm sarcastic as fuck. And so I liked it. Oh, and there was one line that I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. It's the supervisor for the mom. And he's like, okay, ladies, go take a lunch, but don't take too long because the enemy doesn't take breaks. So neither can we. And I'm like, wait, but you literally just told them to go take a lunch break. What do you mean neither can we? So that stuck out to me a little bit. But that line with the mom being sarcastic as fuck, that's what really popped to me. And I'm like, ooh, sarcastic mom, I like you.
Yeah, I could see that. I didn't connect with the line. I think I glossed over and I just didn't find anything appealing at all. There was nothing there to like keep me listening to the dialogue, so I gave it a 0. Scenery,
0.
I gave it a 0.5.
Nope. It looked kind of cool, but it wasn't enough to pull my attention, not enough to keep me entertained. I swear to God, I'm not lying to you. The end credit song really did wake me from my coma. I was just like, when the fuck is this going to be over? Because this is shit. And nothing pulled me in with the scenery at all.
I felt the scenery was unique in itself. Basically, the industrial city that they were in, it was creative to a certain degree. It was unique, but it wasn't like nothing captivating. I liked the style of it, but it was far and few between, and that's why I gave it the 0.5. Recommend.
0.
I gave it a 0.25.
Nope. Nope. It was absolute shit. There was no plot. There were no characters to get around. There was no direction at all. The high point that it had was the fucking sound of music. Other than that, everything else was garbage. There was nothing to hold your attention. I cannot give this any type of recommendation. The only recommendation I can give is go ahead and watch episode 1 and then don't finish the other 2 because they are shit.
I like the art and I like the way the cannon looked. I liked the shot from the cannon, but that was really it. 0.25, I give that. And you're not even going to give it a shot at 0.25 most likely. So I'm just going to say that. That's what I liked about it.
I ended with a 1.5.
I ended with a 2.75.
You're too generous, bro.
That's me not being generous.
Oh, well, that's you being very generous.
No. Being generous would have been a 6 because I looked at the art of it, looked at it as a college project. Overall, these 3 stories, very different in each one. Very different plots, very different story styles, animation, very different in themselves. And I like to say that like the first one was the best. It was the most developed. The other 2 were just flat, bad. The stories didn't make sense. Nothing was connected well, and they just weren't in a good direction by the director.
Overall, I didn't understand why they made it into 3 separate episodes and called it a movie. None of the episodes had anything to do with each other, and each plot line was its own story. So why did you call all of the collection memories? Because none of them had to do with memories except the first episode. The only story that had any depth to it was the first one. It had actually to do with the title. The title is Memories. That first episode was about Ava's memories. I just think it was a very, very strange film indeed. I really can't recommend this to anyone.
Yes, I totally agree. Now, next week's episode is a 1987 comedy film called From the Hip. I have never heard of this film before you told me about it. And when I watched the trailer, it felt like your typical 80s comedy film. I'm getting a vibe that he's a lawyer who I really don't know much. I'm not expecting a lot really from personally, so I'm going to give it a 5.
I love how energetic and childish Judd Nelson looks in this. I'm pretty sure it'll be a fun one to watch, and I'm gonna give it a 7.5.
All right. As we wrap up, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning into this week's episode of the Nerd Otaku Podcast. Ben, as always, I appreciate you coming on.
Of course, I love doing this and can't wait to do more.
Guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment on what we should review for next season as we're wrapping up the first season. We're just getting recommendations from you guys for what we should watch. So as always, I'm Eli. Have a good week and stay safe.
Hey, thanks for joining us, guys. We love doing this.